Alright, before we get into actual programming, we're going to take a little bit deeper look at the actual programming environment and get a little bit deeper into how a program actually executes. So we want to make sure we've got some of our terminologies consistent, and what we want to look at, first of all, we're looking at ladder logic. And just like a ladder, it has rungs. Each line of this program is considered a rung. And if you remember from earlier in the series, I had mentioned that other PLC programming languages were also based on ladder logic. Here's one example of another PLC programming environment, which you can see looks significantly different, but when you take a closer look, here on the left, you have a navigation pane. You have program files. To the right, you have a coding environment. And you see some of the same blocks and the same style of lines as you saw in the last one in our RS Logix 500. Here's another one. Again, you see navigation on the left. You see, even though it looks a little different, you have a basic ladder in your programming window. So once you pick up one form of ladder logic programming, it's really pretty easy to pick up on the rest. There are minor variations. Some have instructions, others don't have. Some call their instructions different things, but they really all work almost exactly the same way. So once you learn one, and RS Logix is a popular one, and it's a very well established one. Once you learn that, if you need to program a Mitsubishi or a Siemens or something like that, it's pretty easy to jump over and adapt what you know and be up and running in really a couple of days. While we're talking about RS Logix, we want to get back into just a little bit more program flow and terminology here in the program. Remember, a program file, when we talk about a program file, we're talking about a section of our program that's being called independently from our main program file. So when we talk about program file 5, that's our alarms. And when we go in here, we have all of our program pertinent to controlling alarms, and we're going to get much deeper into alarms a little bit later in this series. The next terminologies we want to know are, we know what a program file is, what is a rung, and when you see these numbers on the left inside of our programming window, those are numbering the rungs. So each of these numbers correlates to a rung, even though it might have some extra lines going down, and some of those lines can become very deep and very complicated. But each of these numbers is a rung. What we have when we see it drop down and come around and maybe bypass something, that's called a branch. So we have program files to the left. The numbers represent rungs, and we might have multiple branches on a single rung. So if you look at, say, rung 2, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 different branches all on that same rung. So a single rung can be plenty more complex than 1 or 2 instructions, and it can certainly have more than 2 or 3 or even 10 outputs on that rung. So we need to have at least that understanding of what is a program file, what is a rung, and what is a branch before we move on.